Hey everybody, one moment, I'm just getting everything set up. I really should chop off the beginning of these because it takes a minute for everything to kind of sync up before we get going here. Um, so just bear with me a moment. All right, I think we're good to go. If not, let me know. So, welcome to Men Need to Be Heard. I'm Dan, back for my weekly live. And today I actually had a topic I wanted to talk about, which was I was going to talk about the future of marriage, but I'm scrapping that. I'm actually going to push that to next week because, well, if I can be so blunt, this has been the week from hell for me, specifically with regard to this particular thing that I do. Men Need to Be Heard. For those that don't know me or don't know who I am, hey, Analogy. I don't do this as my living. I am a personal trainer and strength and conditioning coach. I train people for weightlifting competitions, that kind of thing, weight loss, all those things. And I own a fitness studio. So that's my primary thing, and that's great. I'm enjoying that. Everything's going great on that. But this week for the Men Need to Be Heard, which I guess is a brand. Somebody told me earlier this week I'm a brand now, which I was like, okay, whatever. Never thought I'd be a brand. It's been a rough week. So since my last live, which was a week ago today, I have been under attack. Like nonstop. This account that you're watching has had multiple violations put on it. Didn't get banned, but I think I'm at strike 2 now. Multiple videos, always in the middle of the night. It's a planned attack. I know it is. And I did a video earlier today talking about it a little bit more in detail. Thanks, Siobhan. Hope to see you next week if you can't stay long. But what's basically been happening is, I get up in the morning, drink my coffee. I usually chill for 45 minutes to an hour. I don't touch my phone until after that. But then you open your phone, you check your email and all that stuff. It's, hey, just me. It's not just TikTok. And I'm going to talk about that. And 4 out of the last week, 7 days, 6 days, whatever it is, I've had to deal with those things, right? Videos being taken down, community violations, blah, blah, blah. Every single one of them I've appealed. Every single one of them I've won. But it's a time-consuming process, right? You got to go through, do the appeal, and all that stuff. Plus, it's just a hassle. And so that's all well and good. Well, it's not good, but you know what I mean. Then this morning, I woke up and on my Instagram account, I was demonetized. And as I talked about, hey, Rick, from your side of the earth, what side of the earth are you from? So now just to be clear on Instagram, I talked about it in the video I did earlier today. I've never made a dime on it, not 1 cent, but they demonetized me. But I've also gotten a couple of, how do I want to put this? It's not threats, but basically warnings. There's the term I'll use, warnings. Eastern EU, what part there, Analogy? Guys, I'd love to hear where you're from, so feel free to share it. So anyway, I meta being meta, and to kind of share something with you, Facebook and I are not friends. They banned me back in 2021, along with YouTube, by the way. I had an account on both of them where I talked about political stuff. I don't do that here. And they banned me specifically in July of 21. Both of them did, for daring to say that the vaccine data showed that it wasn't preventing you from getting it or preventing you from spreading it. So they banned me for that. So I've dealt with Meta that way before. Never got those accounts back, even though everything I said is true. But, it's just a hassle at this point every morning. And I said in my video earlier today, I have a New Zealand. Oh, I would love to go to New Zealand, James. Rick, you owned a school, like a grade school? You owned a grade school, something like that? But it's just a hassle. It's mentally draining. It's, like I said, I get up in the morning, I have my coffee. I call it the veranda, my back deck. I sit out there, listen to the birds, have some coffee, just chill. And, it was a very peaceful morning this morning. It was actually quite nice. And then I went and got my phone, and peaceful morning went right out the window. And who knows what'll happen with Instagram. I'm pretty pissed at them because, again, it happened in the middle of the night. And for those that don't know, and I don't know if Michelle will jump on. Michelle is Reclaiming Your Voice too. She and I talked about it on my podcast. Bundaberg, Australia, Steve. Where in Australia, not that I know much, is Bundaberg? I'm curious. Wow, Rick, over 1,000 kids. You actually owned a high school, or K-12. I used to work in K-12 for about 2.5 years till I couldn't deal with it anymore. But anyway, I'm pretty pissed about Instagram because they've been great. I have to be fair. I've had the Instagram account for roughly 6 months because I only used to do TikTok. I had 4 accounts banned on TikTok. One of which magically reappeared. Men Need to Be Heard 2, TOO, magically reappeared about a month ago. I don't know why. 4 hours north of Brisbane. I do know where Brisbane is. Okay, so I have a rough idea. Not that I've ever been there. But, to give Instagram credit, they've been really good. I've grown well there. I've got close to 70,000 followers on there. I may dump that account. I'm so pissed about it. Because, again, it's not that they have a problem with, per se, with what I'm saying, they being Instagram. It's that they allow these attacks to happen, and then they ban you. TikTok does the same thing. YouTube can do the same thing, right? Although they seem to be a little bit better. Basically, any of the social medias, that's what happens. Used to be with Twitter, it was like that, right? These are planned attacks, by the way. And if Michelle jumps on, I'm going to ask her to kind of contribute to it. But Michelle is a former feminist. She's been in those groups. She talked about it on my podcast. If you want to see, she was on in, I think, early March and talked about this specifically, how they plan these attacks. They use things like private Facebook groups, Discord, those type of things, and then they plan an attack, and it's always in the middle of the night. That Men Need to Be Heard 2 account that I got back, like I said, about a month ago, they attacked Christmas Eve night. So I went to bed Christmas Eve, woke up Christmas morning, you did all the presents and all that crap. Finally checked my phone. My account had been banned. I mean, gone. It was gone. There was not even a warning, just gone. Tiger from Germany. What city in Germany, if I may ask? Thank you, Just Me, for loving both of them. I see you on there all the time. Again, guys, share where you're from. I love seeing that. To wake up Christmas morning, of all things, they targeted me then because they knew if you're not awake, you can't respond to these mass attacks and immediately try and stop them, right? That's why they do it in the middle of the night, and it's all planned, and that's what's going on now. And it gets me fed up at this point because, give or take this week, I've probably spent somewhere between 5 and 10 hours. I don't want to exaggerate it. It's been at least 5, probably not as much as 10. Okay, I know where Stuttgart is. Haven't been there yet, but I know where it is. Guten Tag, wie geht's? Although right now over there, it's Not well, is it? No, it's not Guten Morgen. I shouldn't say that. I used to be fairly good in German. I've forgotten it all. Um, I know the swear words though. You never forget those. But it kind of gives you a few, and that's where I want to kind of take this from because um, I don't want this to be about me and be a whiny little biatch. That's not my goal. But I do want to talk about it in the sense that I try and create a safe space, right? There are many of us that try and create safe spaces for men to speak out, to talk about the issues we have. Let's be honest. Hey, Michelle, I was just, were your ears burning? I was just talking about you. Um, Everybody reclaiming your voice too is Michelle. So it is Guten Morgen. Yeah, no, Germany's what, 6 hours? Well, I guess it is morning then, right? Germany's 6 or 7 hours. Um, but those of us, Michelle is one of them. Myself, there's Tammy, there's Maddie, there's Lindsay, Squirrely Girl. There's tons of us that try and create these safe spaces and allow men to have a voice. And what happens is they try and silence us, and that's what I want to talk about is why. What is the benefit to them to silence men from speaking out? Because, yeah, Michelle, I saw your thing. I actually replied to you on the DM. So check that out and let's coordinate. It's, it's interesting to see how they try and silence the men's safe spaces. And let's think about that for a little bit. So back in the day, I've talked about I'll be 60 pretty soon. Michelle, I will add you once I figure out how the hell to do it. I actually am using the TikTok live studio now. I used to do it on my phone. This live studio is a pain in the ass. I'll try while I'm talking. But back in the day, we used to we had things like the men's club and all that. And, we could get together and talk. The golf course, the gym, right? Being as I own a fitness studio, I should be, back in the 70s, seeing a woman in the gym, we loved it because they became one of us really quickly. I'm trying to do the thing, so Michelle, so I can get you in here. There you go. I just accepted you. Hopefully I didn't just screw up this whole thing. But we had those areas where men could go and talk, and I figured it out just on the fly while talking at the same time. When you do radio, you learn to be able to do those things. Those spaces were taken away. And to a certain extent, I think that was okay, right? Gyms, for example. Why shouldn't there be co-ed gyms, right? There used to be plenty of gyms that were men only, and the women had theirs. And then they became co-ed. That said, it's kind of going back now, right? There are women's only gyms. When was the last time you saw a men's only gym, though? Now, I've had people say to me, why don't I open one? And I have, I hear you, Michelle.
Sorry.
I
know the answer.
What's the answer? Go ahead.
You would, well, first of all, you would get picketed. You would get just, there would be feminists in front of your gym with signs.
Yep.
Immediately.
Yep.
You would get flooded with bad reviews, and then probably you would have a lawsuit for discrimination coming down your way.
All of the above. Yeah, that's it. And it's funny because I'm in trainer groups on various social medias, and I kind of floated it not too long ago because we were all talking about, You know, the whole gym talk thing that was going on a couple months back, where women were videotaping men supposedly looking at them and all that. So there was a whole conversation among trainers and gym owners about it. And I kind of threw it out there. I was like, well, we need to go back to separate gyms. And oh, there was a ton of the women trainers going, yeah, yeah, yeah. And the guy trainers are like, that is never going to work. They will never allow us to have a guy gym, basically what you're saying. Hey, Marcus is that CA Cali? You poor man. I hate California.
Well, I think, and I just want to ask, I get this all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Well, why don't you just then open up a shelter? Well, why don't you then just open up this? Why don't you just do this? They don't realize that the pushback that you would get, the places that have tried to do this and gone either bankrupt or have been so vilified, it's almost impossible to do. And
Yeah.
I'm not saying it is impossible because I'm pretty stubborn about it. But you have to, it's not as easy as, well, if women can open up their only places, why can't men do it? There's not equality the same way.
Yeah. I mean, that's a valid point. You think back 5, 10, maybe 15 years ago, curves was all the rage, right? Men weren't allowed in curves. Fine, no problem with that. And you never saw, like you're talking about, protests. No one had an issue with it. It was great.
No?
No one had a problem with it. But if you had to have a men's curves, it would never fly. And then, to be honest with you, from the financial standpoint, you know, like you said, you're going to have to deal with people pushing back on, say, Yelp. Not that Yelp's that big anymore, but stuff like that. And yeah, that's going to affect you, right? Because people do go read the reviews. I also believe, I sincerely believe this, you'd have problems getting your permits and stuff from the cities and stuff.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. So yeah, that's a fair
Absolutely.
point. But you just brought something up that I was going to talk about, which is you see the same thing. A domestic violence shelter is a safe space. Now, there
Yeah.
are literally thousands upon thousands of them in the United States. There are 2 for men. One is in Arkansas and the other is in Texas. And
There's a third one, which is co-ed, but
well, the one in
yeah.
Arkansas is co-ed also, but they split it.
Oh, is
So
it?
yeah, I had
Oh,
Randy
okay.
on from
Yeah.
there on the podcast a couple months back. And he sometimes jumps on as Randy. If you jump on, feel free to chime in. I don't know if you're on or not, but Randy talked about how they do men and women, but they have the separate areas for them to live in type stuff.
Hmm.
And it's a beautiful thing, and it's the way they all should be, right? But they're not. There are only 2. There may be a few other smaller ones that I don't know about, to be fair, but there is not, excuse me, a safe space for male victims of domestic violence to go to. Now, I'm in North Carolina. I've started the process of seeing what I can do. As I've talked about before, I do a radio show. It's political. I have ins with the politicians. I interview some of them. I talk to them off air about it. I'm starting to see what I can do. That said, much like when I tried to do it in New York, they push back right away. Well, is there really a
Yep.
need for it? Yeah.
Well, the
Well,
problem is, right, the numbers don't reflect the need because the numbers are inaccurate.
right.
And that's what we're trying to prove now. We have to get creative. We can't be like the women and rely on statistics, even though those are fucking wrong. Pardon my language. But they are. So we have to come up with a different way to show need. And I believe that's men's stories. That's what I believe is going to do it.
Yeah, and for those that don't know, Michelle is putting a book together, which I am still working on that, Michelle, of men's stories,
Okay.
history, or his story, I guess is the way you say it. How do you say it? Is it history or his story you're doing it?
It'll be like HIS is in capitals and the rest is in like lowercase. So it'll read his story,
His story, okay.
history.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that when that comes out, that would be something that I can then take to Raleigh,
Mm-hmm.
and use it. I will buy copies and hand it out to the appropriate people. If you know how to play the game in politics, you don't need to get everybody. You just need to get the right people. And then your bill will pass, or your funding, or all that. But again, starting that process, and that's the way I'm approaching it, is more from a case of there is no safe space for male victims. So whatever the numbers you think they are, 5%, 10%, 50%, it's probably closer to 55, is irrelevant when you present it to them that way. I can say to them, look, if 5% of the victims are male, in North Carolina, there's 10 million people. Let's use their numbers. If you say 5% of the population deals with domestic violence, a way low number. Let's even go a little bit higher, to be fair, because they normally say 1 in 4 men. So population of 10 million, 5 million guys. If 1 in 4 men, that's 1.25 million men are abused. And there's nowhere for them to go. Now, I kind of took it down even lower because I wanted to make the numbers so low, but yet hit them with, where are these people supposed to go? If it's 50,000, 100,000, and you have no place for them that's safe, why are you okay with that? And they glaze over when that happens. But it takes,
Well, they don't want to say the quiet words out loud, do they?
well, they know. And they know those numbers. A lot of them do know those numbers are BS. But, it kind of speaks into this whole thing that I want to talk about today, which is the next step is, how do we prevent this from happening? What I'm seeing, right? I know Tammy has dealt with it in the past. Maybe you've dealt with it, Michelle. I know others have, where they try and create these safe spaces for men and their accounts get banned, taken down, shadow banned. I've,
Every day.
for those that don't know, I'm gonna let him in on a little secret, Michelle. We all talk behind the scenes. I talk to some people daily. I talk to some weekly. I talk to some monthly. Michelle and I keep in contact, that type of thing. We all talk behind the scenes, right? Sharing information. And many of us see the exact same things. And, and when you see that and you try and help each other out, but still, if TikTok decides I'm gone, literally they flip the switch and I'm done. I wouldn't be surprised if they shut this down, because we're talking about an uncomfortable topic, right?
I've noticed this thing now they have in lives where they give you a warning. It says your live is currently being reported. So they'll give you a warning first.
Mm-hmm.
I have 2 of my mods in here. I must have to restart my lives 5, 6 times, maybe. And we're not talking about anything but men's either mental health. We don't have anybody yelling. We don't have any, we don't use, we couldn't use more childlike language if we tried,
Mm-hmm.
And I get shut down on a nightly basis because I go live every night.
I see you on all the time. I just,
Mm-hmm.
it's interesting to me how, again, somebody's reporting you, it sounds like, and trying to
Well,
shut you down. Or is it
as a
TikTok, do you
former
think?
feminist, no, well, I'll tell you how the game works. Because for people who don't know, I'm a former feminist. I'm sorry, I'm reformed now. I promise I'm good.
She is.
Um, but the feminists run discords. And when they hear, and trust me, they will put in their algorithm, men's mental health, men matter too, the things that we tag our videos with and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
So our lives are coming up on these feminist algorithms. When they know that a live is coming up about men's mental health, they will put it in their Discord and say, go report it. So you will get 30 reports just because they
Right.
don't want a men's health or a men's live going on.
Yeah,
But it's also TikTok's fault because they're allowing this.
it's not just TikTok though. I've seen the same thing with Instagram.
Hmm.
And
They're
I had now to
they're
be
well
fair,
organized.
I have not seen it on YouTube yet. It's not an if, it's a
They
when.
they're well organized, and people think I'm insane and I sound like a conspiracy theorist, but literally they have. And usually, then what the feminists will do is they have like a hit list of, creators where you're on it, I'm on it, Tammy's on it, Squirrely's on it,
Mhm.
those people. So when a new video comes out, they'll report it at like 2, 3 o'clock in the morning when normal people are asleep.
Yeah, I talked about that just before you came on because that's what they've been doing to me all week.
Hmm.
I've dealt with on TikTok 4 days of it, and then they hit me on Instagram this morning. And
Hmm.
it just, again, my focus with this is to say it needs to stop in the sense that if you think women need safe spaces, valid. I don't have a problem with that. But why do you not you, Michelle, but those listening, why do you think men don't deserve it, right? Why do Maddie just jumped on Michelle? He said Michelle doesn't sleep.
Oh,
Hey
that's
Maddie.
their obstacle. True that. True that.
Um
Well, I once was one of them, so I still have their ways. I
I don't
still
know.
have a little.
Yeah. But one of the things that I would set if I had one of them on right now, and they were saying, well, we shut you down because of whatever their reasons are. Basically, they just don't like us in a nutshell. Fine, I'm okay with you not liking me, but why do you feel you need to shut me down? Why do you feel you need to silence the voices of men who are trying to help one another out? Where's the benefit to you as far as societally, right? Um,
I can tell you.
Go
I
ahead,
mean, you don't have to have one of them. I can give it to you
go for it.
right now. If they have to silence us because we are ruining their narrative, we are slowly chipping away at their narrative. And if they can't become, if they aren't the victims, and if suddenly people go, oh my God, maybe we do need to start investing in men, they think that's going to take away from them. And they can't have that. They can't have the threat. We are the biggest threat to them. And feminism is like a machine. It's a moneymaker machine. It's a, not only that, it is, they teach this very feminized things in colleges now. They have clubs, that books, things like that. It's also making the next generation a generation of feminists. It they don't want it to be equal, and we are exposing that. So we are a danger to them. That is why they need to shut it down and silence us.
I understand what you're saying. I don't disagree with any of it. But again, are they not thinking of the long term effects to society of that? Because I'll give you a beautiful example of it. Because I used this with someone that was, let's say, debating with me. And they were saying that, well, men aren't necessary, was part of it. And then they got into, well, men, I was talking about the draft a little bit, and they were saying, well, it's, we wouldn't need the draft if men weren't in power because there'd be no wars. Let's set that one aside, right? But my response to was, okay, well, there's always going to be war because women have started wars. Let's be honest. Margaret Thatcher, for example. Um, if you take the men away, and I used Ukraine as the example, do you think the women in Ukraine right now are saying we don't need men? I doubt it. you know, um, master debater Maddie. Oh, I'll let it go.
I know.
I love Maddie, man. But yeah, it's amazing to me how that mindset that you're talking about is so ingrained at this point, and it's generational. I've been talking about that a lot recently. It started in the
Oh,
70s,
absolutely.
and it's just passed on and morphed. I was talking with someone not too long ago, and I said feminism became like a game telephone. First wave, getting the vote and all that. And I consider the early 70s still first wave. My personal thing. Getting equality there. I don't have any problem with any of that. It was necessary in a lot of cases. All good. By the early mid 80s, that battle had been won essentially, at least in the States. And then it kind of morphed, right? The next generation came along out of that generation, and it was a little bit more anti-men. And then the one after that, even more. And now we're 4 generations in. It's become insane. And again, you're starting to see online, at least I am, more and more women going, where's all the men? Where'd they all go? Why aren't they interacting with us? And again,
Yeah, where are all the good men?
yeah, where are
Where
all
are
the
all the
good
good
men?
men when we just made 20 videos about how we said we don't need men?
Right. And that's where I think that's where the long-term change will come, is if more women like yourself speak out, and say, let's think about this. Because trying to go head to head with them on it is never going to work. You're not going to change their minds. But if you can get
No.
more and more women to say, what you're saying is not true. It's not valid. It's not whatever word you want to use. There are good men out there. It's not all men. It's not, all that stuff. That's where change is going to happen. I can speak till I'm blue in the face. Nothing's going to change. Guys are doing what guys do. They're walking away. They're done with it all. And that's what we
Yeah.
do, right? We've analyzed the situation. I had this conversation on the podcast a couple weeks ago, and we were talking about it in this.
It was funny. I just fought this fight. I've been doing passport bros for the past 3
Oh,
days,
yeah, that's another one.
and it's the same idea. Well, fuck it, we're out.
Mm-hmm.
you know, and I'm like, well, guys, we gotta clean it up. I know it's gonna be hard, but we gotta, it's like it. I made the example of, we were looking for inhabitable other planets, right? But
Okay.
you can't just say, well, we've fucked up ours so bad that let's go to another one and we're just going to make the same mistakes there. We have to fix, we have to fix it.
Yeah, well, yeah, we're not. I don't think we're going to be moving to Mars anytime soon. At
Well,
least
I'm just saying that was the best analogy I
that.
had,
No, it's a good one though. But that's where, if you kind of take that analogy, that's where we're headed right now. You're going to have two on Earth, obviously, but two distinctly separate tribes. You're going to have the men in one area and the women in another, so to speak. I'm not talking physically. And never shall the two converse with each other. You're seeing it politically, right? At least in the States, it's become so divided. There's no middle ground anymore. It's all in that thing, and that's not good for society. I don't care where your politics are. I don't care where you stand on men's rights, women's rights. No good comes from driving that wedge even further. None. Now, at this point, I'll be the first to say I would advise men, be very careful if you decide to get in relationships. I talk about it all the time. And I'm, as much as I think marriage is a good thing for society and for both men and women at this
Don't
point,
do it.
don't
Don't
do it.
do it.
It's my point, right?
Don't do it.
Because the risk to the men at this point is so great of you losing everything. There's no return on investment. And that's where I think there's a really big disconnect, because I know you get it, Michelle, but most women don't understand that men think completely different than women. Men are very, and I'll use the term, and I know it gets offensive to some people, men are logical. We go from point A to point B to point C to point D. That's how we are. And yes, there's exceptions. You always have to say that. There's exceptions. Stop with all
Yeah,
that.
not all.
In general, men are extremely logical, right? Give us facts and we'll respond to the facts. Women, on the other hand, are more emotional. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing. In fact, I think it's a good thing. They want to get the group think together, get everybody on the same page, all that stuff. I don't think one's better than the other. I think they're mutually beneficial. We've lost that, right? Women can't understand how men think.
No,
For millennia,
no.
men have not
Women,
understood how women think.
women, I'm going to correct you there. Women won't understand how men think. They don't take the time. They don't put in the effort. They think that men should communicate like women, and men should change how they talk, how they think to suit them, but they shouldn't do anything to, understand how a man thinks. I believe that 100%.
Interesting. Do you think that, let me ask you this. Do you think prior, let's say feminism started at, let's use 1970s, an arbitrary year. Do you think prior to that, women did do that? Because I
Oh, I
don't.
think so. Well, I do in a way
Okay.
because you had to. It you didn't really have much choice, right?
Mm-hmm.
You weren't working. You were most women weren't working, so you were a wife and a housewife. So you had to learn how to communicate with your man because that was your life, and it was a matter of survival. It was a matter of like just you were forced into it.
Mm-hmm.
So now that there is in a case of emergency run, there's an escape hatch. um Women go, well, I don't have to learn how to do it, or I don't have to compromise because I can just leave.
Right. You know, it's funny. The point you just made is one I've made, but I've gone back.
Hey, look, the passport bros.
Yeah, I've made
And
that point a hundred years prior. So, like in the 1800s and early 1900s, I think exactly the situation you were talking about. Because literally, it was live or die. If you did not work together, you were out on the
yes,
prairie. If you did not communicate, all of that stuff, you died literally, right?
yeah,
And
uh-huh,
then the Industrial Revolution came along. Things started changing, late 1800s, early 1900s, so on and so forth. And I do think that it was lost back then. I see. Even I would argue, even in the 40s and 50s, it was gone to a certain extent. Maybe not, certainly not to the level it is now. But I think men have always said we don't get women. At least we're honest about it, right? And I'm at the point now I don't even try to understand it because it just I can't
I
grasp it.
think men get women. I do. I think men get women if they are willing to, communicate how men communicate. I've had no problem with men getting me. If I use their language
Hmm.
and learn to communicate like how they do,
Hmm.
and not expect them to. I hate to use the word feminine, but like, to speak in a feminine way, you know, like just direct communication, being direct. And I've had no guys that don't get me, um, because I kind of speak like a dude, you know?
Yeah, you're very in tune with your masculine side, if I might coin a phrase there. And you're right. Like that's why you and I communicate so well, right? As an example.
But I will say, people don't realize this about me, is I am one of the most traditional women you'll ever meet. There
Mhm.
is a reclaiming persona, but then there's the Michelle. Like, I don't own a washing machine.
Mhm.
I'm not materialistic at all. So think people see me as this loud, opinionated person, but I am probably more traditional than most of the women that the passport bros go to get.
Well, it's fun. I don't want to turn this into the passport bro thing, but by the
God
way,
help us.
I am. If you can help me out, just quick side note. Sorry if those of you are listening. I am looking for an expert on passport bros to come on the podcast. So
Me. Me.
no, I need. I know you are, but you know what I mean. Send me DMs with that. Um, but
I got a few of them
all
for
right,
you.
yeah, shoot me one. But it's funny because one of the things that I've had women say to me in the past is they feel I get them better than most, that I can communicate to them because I'm in touch with my feminine side. Um,
Mm.
but I also say, in a sense, it's because I'm more direct. And I'm not afraid to speak out. Now, I think and I'm not saying that to make myself sound great or anything. I'm not afraid to say to a woman, you're full of shit, right? Or whatever. Um, they don't
How
like it.
dare you?
I know they don't
How
like it
dare you?
sometimes. They really don't like it, but there are those that do. I will
I love it.
also say to them, you just said X. That makes absolutely no sense to me because I'm hearing this. What do you actually mean? And then they usually, what do you mean I don't know what you don't know what I mean? I'm literally telling you I do not understand what you mean. Explain it to me. And get that dialogue going that way. They don't like it at first, but in the end they actually do. My best friend happens to be a female. It took her a while to get used to that because she'll say something to me and I'll go, her name's Katie. I'll go, Katie, what the hell are you talking about? I don't even understand what you're talking about. Explain it to me. And, we have to go around the circle a little bit, right? I always use the
Yeah, the
roundabout. We're
roundabout.
driving around the roundabout. We may go 2 times, 3 times, 4 times, but eventually we'll get it, right? And that's why her and I get along so well. And that's why she's my best friend because we've established that communication, that paradigm that works for us. I'm not saying it's going to work for everybody, but that's
Well, and I
completely
think
lost.
women, I've done lives where, I've said, women, you can ask me about, because I think they're more willing to ask a woman, instead of going to a man, uh, what are men thinking about this, and this, and I can do my best to answer the questions. You know what I mean? I'm not trying to speak for men, but men have told me, pretty much the answers. And if I do have questions, I always have my co-host. But um, the thing is, women don't believe. I've told women when a man says something, believe him.
Yeah,
He's not like women.
yeah.
When he says something, that's what he means. It's not a woman saying something and she means something else. So if he says he wants tacos, he said he wants tacos. It doesn't mean he wants pizza.
That's that literal I was talking about, that logical
Michelle
thinking.
is one of the boys.
Yeah. I mean, that is our logical thinking. We will tell you directly what we want. Most of the time they don't hear it. Or they want to hear it differently. And that you just talked about that, right? If I say something is black, it's black. If I say it's green, it's green. It's not, midnight blue or I don't know. Give me a green shade, Michelle, because I don't even. To me,
Jade.
there are 8 colors in the world. Roy G. Biv. Other than that, there are no other colors.
I'm an artist. I was an
Yeah, I know
artist
you were.
before
That's why I kind of
myself.
threw out. I knew.
So, yeah.
There we go. Pine. Couple people. I kind of just want to scroll back through some of the comments here because want some of them to kind of chime in a little bit.
And the
Judith,
men can ask a former feminist any question. When do they get to do that?
yeah, really. Judith Gordon, why do men need to be so hard? Real men have empathy and sympathy for others. Most men are not hard. We've just got to put our shell up, because if we allow our emotions out, we get burned almost universally. It'll be used against us. It'll be weaponized against us. It will come back to haunt us. So it's not that we don't have empathy and sympathy. We don't show it because it's just not safe to. Would you agree on that, Michelle?
Oh yeah, and I mean, the thing is, women always say, I want you to open up to me. I want you to tell me all your emotion. You can be emotional with me. I promise." But what they don't realize is that man has probably heard that 12 other times from other women, and he's done it, and then she's used it against him.
It only takes one time.
And it only takes one time. And I've told women, when a man tells you his story or he opens up to you, that is the biggest sign of trust you will ever get. And the moment you break it, and you can break it in different ways. It's telling your girlfriends about it too.
Oh, that's the
Shut that up.
that
Stop
one
doing that.
That's the
Stop
worst one to me
doing
right there. If you take what I say to you and weaponize it against me individually, that's bad. You go tell your girlfriends about it, we're done. Done. Not only are we not going to get our feelings shared anymore, I'm not going to communicate to you at all anymore. That's me personally.
Because I mean, I don't know. I don't understand women that do that, and it women do not realize that, and they go, "Oh well, I was just hanging out with the girls," and that girl's gonna tell her husband, right? And then if the husband and his friends is gonna be like, "Oh, I heard you were crying last night," like it's just not. No,
Oh,
shut it.
You will.
Shut it.
That
Keep
guy
it to
will
yourself.
never open up again. Not just to you, but to anyone. Been there, done that.
Yeah.
Been there, done
And
that.
and I will say, as what these women don't understand is they're making dating extremely hard for women like me. Who, if a man tells me his story, it goes into a vault and no one will ever hear it. You know, but I have met some amazing men, but they have been hurt so much. And, it, you know, they're done, they're done. They're done with dating.
I'm just kind of chuckling. I'm scrolling through the messages while we're chatting here. Maddie's got one. Women should become men and vice versa. Let's see what happens. Oh, dear God. No.
Aren't they already?
No.
Yes.
Maddie is always good for the laugh. Maddie, if you're still on, you win the internet today. I'll send you a trophy. Oh, that was great.
I'm still waiting for my swag that I won that one time.
Yeah, I got to get, yeah, it's been a rough week, Michelle. Just going through some logical.
Dude, I'm in a hotel room because my pipes burst.
Oh, geez. Logical thinker who's on every week with me. The legal aspect of marriage is flawed. Yes, it is. I'm just kind of randomly grabbing, guys. If I miss any of your stuff, there's a lot of messages. I'm way behind. I know. Women these days.
I'm not really seeing questions so much.
No, it's just kind of. But I like to cover some of the comments. Women don't need a man because they're independent. Yeah, until they need a man. And by the way, vice versa, right? Men don't need a woman until they need a woman for something. There are things that women are better at than men. Let's be honest here, right? I know guys get pissed at me when I say that, but men's strengths are women's weaknesses in general, and women's strengths are men's weaknesses in general. And you know what? We should be celebrating that and working together, because united, the whole becomes far greater than either of the parts. There's my
I
pontification for the day.
I feel it's become these women. They have to. They can't have a deficit, and that's what I feel. It's
Hmm.
like they can't admit that a man is better at some things. They can't, because I mean, I've told women, like men are better at A, B, and C. Oh, well, we can do that too. It's like, yes, you. I'm not saying you can't,
Right.
but why do you have to be good at everything? Why do you have to be everything? It's that's an answer I don't know, because I don't think like these women,
Hmm.
but that's what I would sit down and maybe ask a feminist. Why do you have to be everything now? Like, a guy is supposed to, if he has something you don't, that kind of takes it off your shoulders. It gives you some calm,
That's my point.
you
Yeah.
know? So why are you deliberately? I think in a way they're deliberately shoving more things on their shoulders so they can be a victim, because their victimhood is very slipping away very, very quickly.
It's interesting that was a good point you just made. I do think it's that victimhood mentality that's been drilled into them from their grandmothers and mothers, and to be honest, society. Hollywood has a part of doing that. And I actually think that's a disservice to women because it puts them in a place of weakness, if you will, right? If they're always the victim, they're always weak. Women are not weak. They're anything but. And it's, speaking as a guy, because there was a conversation on one of my videos about this, and I kind of replied with saying, because they were saying it was the one you probably all saw the viral video, the girl saying that she's a liberal but wants the conservative man. And my point would be the conservative man wants a strong woman, not a bitchy one, a strong one. That's what attracts it. Politically I'm a libertarian, but I lean conservative with a lot of things, right? Traditional, if you will. Do I think women should be barefoot pregnant in the kitchen? No, I don't. But the quote unquote traditional roles worked for literally millennia, and they worked for a reason. And when you say to women, you're always a victim, you're putting those women down, right? Oh, you're a stay at home mom. You are so weak. You should be out having a career. No, she's doing something that's fantastic, that takes strength to do. That's my take on that. But anyway, let me just get a couple of the comments
They
here.
shame,
Yeah.
they shame the women too.
So I just want to go through some of the comments. Babe Scudaniel said, "Today's women make me wish to never be in a relationship. Very common belief." Bears Path. I love. How do you schedule your live sessions weekly? Bears. Mine are weekly, Wednesdays, 4 p.m., and I usually go to about 5:30 p.m. Michelle is on all the time, as I see her. And go check Michelle's out because she's awesome. And I'm not saying that because she's sitting here listening to me. And no, she didn't bribe me either. Well, see, we take it and re-roll with it, but we need purpose. Women don't realize the importance of that. That's a really good statement there, Welshie, because yes, men won't do things just to do them. There's got to be a reason to do them. And I'm not saying that's the better way, but women are the opposite, right? They'll do things just to do them, not to have a purpose. And there's nothing right or wrong about either way. Couple notes to Michelle. Let her answer those on her own, because I know she's in here also. I'm just kind of scrolling through, guys. If I miss yours or don't mention yours, please don't be offended. It's true women can multitask more than men. We focus on one thing, we get it done first. Generally speaking, that is true. I am a master multitasker, or I was. You know what I found out? I didn't do as well as when I focused on one thing at a time. So that speaks to how we think, how our brains are wired. And there's nothing wrong with either one, just to be fair. It's all about them. I'm just again. I kind of catch. Pretty much caught up at this point. So Michelle, I have a question for you. Then let's get back to the safe spaces. So, do you think? I already know how you're going to answer it, but I want to. I want to give you the chance. Do you think it is possible to get those that want to deny the men the safe spaces to realize that, one, men need them, two, it's not a threat to them that men have them, and I guess three would be that, we all benefit by having that. What is your thoughts on that? Uh-oh, she went quiet on me. I didn't mute you. You're muted, Michelle. I don't know if you kind of looks like you're muted or you lost your mic. I'll keep talking until she comes on. Jump on when you can, Michelle.
There we go.
There you go. You're back on. All right, go ahead.
Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you now. Go ahead.
My internet's a little wonky.
Oh, go ahead.
I think making them feel like men, I don't think they think men are a threat. I really don't.
Okay.
I think it's a facade. I think it.
Oh, your mic just cut out again. While we're waiting for her to come back, CMZ4, blah, blah, blah. What would you say to the thought feminists are a product of not having a real problem to worry about? I got to think on that one. That's a really fair question. And then Samson Lost, I think that's the whole woke movement. Yeah, I kind of get... Wokeism and feminism have a lot of similarities in them. A lot of them. If you actually go look at their whole paradigms and how they act and what they do, they're very similar. Take from that what you will. I'm just making an observation, not a judgment. Again, Michelle just disappeared. I'll give her the chance to pop back on. It's funny because I'm just kind of ruminating on that question. Do I think feminists are a product of not having a real problem to worry about? I think if you're talking in the sense of manufacturing a problem, I'll be on board with that. In the sense that, as I said this earlier in this talk, I go back to the 70s, right? I was born in 63. I think there was a legitimate need for a movement in the early 70s. Education being a big one, right? They needed to help girls. Girls were lagging behind. They did that. They essentially, and again, we're not talking perfection here, but they essentially fixed it by the 80s, okay? But then the pendulum swung all the way the other way. Now boys are completely behind. But yet, they're still creating, or if you will, manufacturing the problem, this is why I'm using it to illustrate, that girls are still falling behind in school. When the reality is, girls are way ahead of boys. So in the 70s, early 70s, roughly 60% of boys went to school, college, 40% of girls. That number is almost exactly flipped. All right. You look at graduation rates, all that stuff. It's almost flipped identically. And yet, when was the last time you heard anyone talking about helping boys in school? You don't hear a word about it. In fact, I'm trying to get someone on my podcast to have a very in-depth discussion about this. But it's a really good point. I do think Samson Law said even if they have to manufacture a villain, that's kind of where I'm going with it. That's my mind process, is that they need that justification to feel the way they do. And again, kind of keep on topic with what I'm talking about. I think that's a large reason why they do deny men their safe spaces, right? Why they try and silence me, or the fear they have, this is my opinion, all right? The fear they have of me is that I point out the double standards. So the account you're on now, I do the more of the give and takes, and I view it as a more of an educational, right? Men Need to Be Heard 3 is about education. Educating men about the realities that the world is right now, right? So if you're going to get married, make sure you know this is the possibility that could happen. I'm not trying to attack anyone or anything like that. I'm trying to educate with that. And that's where I go with this channel. And they don't like that, first of all, right? Because I'm saying to men, no, you shouldn't be getting married right now. Or if you're going to, you better go in with your eyes really wide open. The reality is 50% of marriages do end in divorce. That's cut and dried, right? And if they do, the 90% of the time you're going to lose your kids, right? Mothers are awarded primary custody. Notice how I said that, not custody, because they like to twist that. Primary custody about 90% of the time, and all that. So if you decide to get married knowing that, more power to you, right? You got a 50-50 shot, essentially. You may find a great marriage. And by the way, this applies for women too, right? That's my goal with that. That's where I'm educating. Men Need to Be Heard 2 is all about exposing the double standards. I've been doing a series, Did You Ever, I've been calling it, which is essentially pointing out double standards. Oh, there's Michelle again. Hang on, Michelle, I'll invite you in. So, they don't like that account because basically I'm calling them out on their stuff. Hang on, Michelle, I'm getting there. Except you should be back in now.
Yes.
There you are. All right. So back to our question, if you remember what it was. I don't remember exactly. Sorry.
Will women ever admit that they're threatened by men? And I said, I don't think women are threatened by men. I think they know they hold the power. I really do. They know. Now they'll act like they don't. They act like, oh, I just don't know what you're talking about. I'm so scared of the big bad men. But my question has always been to them is, if you paint men as predators, right? Mm-hmm. And they're saying all these men are just predators and, I'm scared to walk at a parking garage at night. Yeah, but you're not afraid to go home with a complete stranger. That seems odd to me.
You're talking about like the Tinder type stuff?
Yeah,
I don't.
Or just dating in general.
Yeah,
I've known women who go on, who aren't looking for like a hookup.
Right.
But the guy will say, "Will you want to come back to my house and watch a movie?" And she'll say yes, only knowing him for a day. Yet they state that they're so afraid of men, and men are so dangerous, and men are just out to get women. It doesn't fit. Something doesn't make sense in that equation.
And they apply it in various situations, different ways. The classic one I use now, and when I was growing up, it was don't get in a stranger's car. It's very dangerous to do that. Now I'll use two words: Uber and Lyft. They don't seem to have a fear there. I've never heard a single woman say to me, they'll say, "Oh, I'm gonna take Lyft." Okay, and I'll say to them, "Well, do you feel safe doing that?" "Oh yeah, perfectly safe, no worries at all." And I'm like, how's that any different really than hitchhiking? Yeah, I know Lyft and Uber supposedly do background checks. I've never used either one, to be honest with you. But it's just weird to me how they apply that standard, or I've never done the Tinder thing. I never would. That's just not my thing. But my understanding is essentially it's not really a dating site. It's more of a hookup site. So if you're using...
it depends.
I don't know. I honestly... it's not Match.com, right? They're two different things. That's my understanding.
No, I know. It's free, and it's, it's... I'm sure there's somebody on there thinking that they're going to meet Mrs. Right, but it's not,
You're not on there to meet Mrs. Right, is what you're saying.
Yeah,
yeah. But again, it's, if you don't think twice about, and I would do this as a guy. So I remember, this is years ago when Match first started, I was dating at the time. and I was having fun on Match because it was just fun to meet people. And I met a crazy who literally within 15 minutes wanted to start making wedding plans, and I'm not joking. I'm not exaggerating in any way, shape, or form. And I was like,
I believe it.
I'm out the door, right? Because my rule was we're going to meet for coffee, and that's it. And I had a 1 hour rule. No matter how good it was going, we're leaving in an hour. And I said this ahead of time. That way, if either one of us doesn't feel it's right, you have an out, and you don't have to worry about it. And when you set that expectation, it kind of takes a lot of the fear away. But I would sit there and I had this woman, she's like, well, when we get married, I'm like, what? I had another one probably within 20 minutes. She's like, yeah, I live right around the corner. Why don't we go back to my place and, we'll have some fun. And I'm like, no, I don't do that,
But that's my point. It that right there breaks this whole narrative of how scary men are, right?
Right. That's my point. Yeah.
Men are just rapists that cannot control themselves. We have to be in fear of them at all times. Yet women will literally give up their location to a stranger on the internet.
Yeah, I don't get it. And
so
it's funny because
to me,
nature
that holds a lot of holes.
Yeah. Well, like Nature Man said on here, I've had people on here, TikTok, ask me my location so they can see if I want a relationship. I've had that happen. I can't tell you. I mean, it's not, I don't want to make it sound like it's some huge number, but I would say at least once a week, I get a woman that DMs me. It's like, hey, where are you located? Maybe we could get together, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, no, no. It's just, if you're so afraid of men, why would you do that? That's
what I'm saying.
Yeah, that fear is largely manufactured. When you look at it in an individual case, is what I'm saying is the individual woman. There are ones that have fears, obviously, but in general, I don't sense it. And I always say to people,
no, because
go ahead.
As my situation, and people who don't, I'm a DV survivor. He still lives in close proximity to me. I don't post on social media my location. If I'm going somewhere, I don't post that. If I take selfies and I'm out, I make sure that there's no distinguishing markers. I'm always looking around myself. That's someone who lives in fear because they have to live in fear. And I'm not saying, my life is always fearful, because I still go out. I still, do things. I don't let him control it, but I have to have that in my mind. You know what I mean?
Is that
I have
more
to
fear
be doubly careful.
Would you classify it as fear or caution?
I mean, it's hypervigilance in a way, but it's. I don't think it's paranoia, because I mean, literally, he's found me 2 prior times or 2 other times and has, it's assaulted me. So I have to be careful, where I go and who I tell people to do, what I'm doing. And, like I'm in a hotel room right now. I just did a video. I was very careful that the backdrop was against the white wall. So, he couldn't even identify anything. That's fear. And that's what these women are saying that they are living in. Yet I saw this woman post a selfie, and she was right under a street or in front of her house with her house number.
Yep.
You know what I mean? It's like, it's a show, I think, for a lot of them.
And it's funny because I teach self-defense, or I haven't recently, but I've taught self-defense and awareness and all that. And the number one thing I teach is, because when they used to take my class, they thought they were going to learn how to beat somebody up. right? Because it was a woman's self-defense class, and I did men's ones also, but it was all about awareness, right? So
Mm-hmm.
the number one way to defend yourself is to not get yourself in a bad situation. The infamous one I
Yep.
always talk about is if you're out going for a walk or jogging and you're wearing headphones, you're just asking for it, right?
Yep.
I love to go for walks. I wear headphones over the ear, but I always have one cocked off my ear. So if someone comes up from behind me, I'll hear them. Now, does that mean they can't stealthily do it? Of course, there's always that chance, right? But it's that even myself, now mind you, I'm 6'1", 280, pretty built. People fear me when they see me walking down the street because they judge me that way. And I know how to take care of myself. I do know how to defend myself, but I still take those precautions. But yet, like to your point, right? I see all the time women in the park. The headphones are on, the
Yep.
earbuds are they're gonna have.
Or
I could get up behind them; they would have no idea I was there.
mhm.
Or like you said, posting their location and stuff like that. It's a conundrum because it doesn't match that fear that they supposedly have all the time. Because if you're genuinely fearful, like you, for example, and you have legitimate reason to be, you take those precautions, but yet they don't. And, if they feel safe in those situations, it doesn't match the fear elsewhere. And
No, it doesn't match the narrative. And
no,
I
it
think
doesn't.
that's where it crumbles
And that's where,
because you
again,
can't say, oh, you know, all these men are rapists and predators, and the number is so much higher. Yet you're willing to move in with a guy after a month of knowing him. It doesn't really
it does.
fit.
Yeah, it's that societal narrative that they're spouting at times, but the individual narrative is different, right? I just kind of looking through some. The Nature Man's posted a bunch of stuff. I just want to scroll through it real quick. I did see he was 16. Nature Man, you're 16, dude.
He's my mod, though.
I'm
He's
chuckling
well
because
vetted.
I was 16 in 1979, dude. Little while ago. Uh, um, yeah, I'm just kind of reading through some of this stuff there, but again, it speaks to if they have that fear and they want to have their safe. Again, I want to get back on topic a little bit. They want to have their safe spaces. I have no problem with that. What I have a problem with is the trying to shut down the men's safe spaces because men need them, right? There's the men's mental health crisis, which gets zero coverage.
Dude, it is Men's Mental Health Awareness Month.
Well, no, it's
And,
Men's Health Awareness Month. Mental health is
well,
November,
yes,
but
but
there is a
I
priority on the
consider,
mental this month. Yeah,
I consider mental also health,
it is
so
part of it.
I
It
put it
absolutely
in
is.
there.
Yes, yes.
Um, and, I can speak on the mental part. I can't really speak on the health because I'm not that kind of a doctor. But it has gotten, I have done lives. I know another guy did a live and his got shut down. He actually got bananaed for doing a men's mental health live because it said it was being a prejudice against pride
What?
because it's also Pride Month.
What? What? What?
Uh-huh.
Dear God.
Yep, they were. He was purposely taking away from pride.
What does that tell you? For those of you listening to this, let that sink in for a minute, right? And I have nothing against Pride Month. I have all the pride you
No,
want,
but
but if
we every month shares something, right? I mean, like if you look at October, October's Domestic Violence Awareness Month. It's also Breast Cancer Awareness Month.
yeah,
I've never once said, these damn women with their breast cancer taken away from my month. You know what I mean? I've
it's
never
just
ever once said that.
that blows my mind, and that's why I do the private groups that I have because of situations like that. I do the private, like I use Patreon. I have private groups within that. I do private talks with men in that for that reason, right? And the talks I do there are not, they're on the internet because we use Zoom, but they're not recorded. They're never going to get out. And we don't have to worry about getting shut down because, I mean, that just is ludicrous to me. Again, it's not a knock on Pride, but we can't talk about men's mental health because, or men's health in general because, I mean,
every live I've done, they've asked, well, why aren't you doing anything on Pride? I said, because it's Men's Mental Health Month. This is what I do.
Well, it's not your channel
and
either.
I've been called quite a lot of colorful names. But I have a question for you. I just thought about this when you were talking about men's safe spaces and women's safe spaces. Aren't really all spaces safe for women? I mean, men go out of their way now because I believe men are in more fear of women than women are of men at this point. I believe there is a turn.
100% agree with you that.
And I don't believe there's any space that isn't woman safe.
You're talking about a physical space, though, right? Because physically, I would say no. I think you're. I agree with you. There's, woman generally speaking can go anywhere she wants.
Well,
now let me rephrase that because I don't want it to sound the way it came out. Women have, like, if you're going down a dark alley in the middle of the night, you legitimately have a right to be wary and fearful. But my argument would be it's the exact same for me, right?
My question is, why are you going down a dark alley at night?
Well, yeah, but sometimes I do, Michelle, because it's my downtown. There's shortcuts through those dark alleys, and I am stupid.
You
fearless.
do you. You got your fun things you like to do. It's none of my business.
Yeah, but I'm doing that fully aware, and yes, I am on heightened awareness with all that. But so I have the same, let's call it concern, fear, whatever word you want to use, as a woman can or should have, right?
Yeah.
There's no difference gender-wise with that. That's my point. In the sense, though, of places to open up and talk, I do think women should have their own space for that, and I do think men should.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, and that's the difference, right? But the problem is they want the women's
it gets
spaces
overtaken.
Well, they actually shut us down, right? If a man tries, go ahead.
I'm sorry. There's a little bit of lag, but
yeah,
there's a thing women do too, and it's very clever. When they have a men's live, they'll come in and they'll start talking about the topic like they seem interested, but then they'll switch it, and by the time you don't even realize it, then you're speaking about women's issues instead of men's issues.
Yeah,
so they've done that.
That's every video I've ever put up. They do that, and like literally every one. And it's interesting because this brings up a point that I'm going to talk about now, which is with all the crap that I've gone through this week, I have never been one to block people. I don't want to ever create an echo chamber type scenario. I welcome different views as long as they're respectful. I'm now at the point where I am starting to block women. Not all women.
You have to.
I would never block you. I would never block Tammy or Lindsay or or Lynn or any. I would never do that. But where I'm watching for is, you can tell certain accounts what they're doing. The ones that have no followers and no picture, or the picture's a flower or something like that. And I hate that I've had to get that. But for me to have the space I have to be able to help men and educate men, I have no choice now, right? Because they are trying to get rid of my space. And that's why I did a video earlier today basically saying to my followers, where should we go? Because TikTok's eventually going to ban me. I know that's coming.
Yep.
They've already done it to me 3 times. I was actually 4, and then I mysteriously got my one account back out of nowhere. Instagram, I have 2 strikes now. I guess on the 3rd strike, I'm done. So it'll probably happen tonight, right? While I'm sleeping. So I don't anticipate being around on either one of those for any length of time. So where do we go? And that's where I've got out to my followers, because I want that safe space where men
I've
and
asked the same question. I said, the TikTok's going to be temporary. I don't want to do the Instagram thing. I don't think it's conducive to what I want to do. There's YouTube, but again, that's harder to, like have conversations like these. I don't know what the answer is.
yeah, I
But
don't
we
either at this
will
point.
be getting, and it's, I've had to rebuild, I think mine's 7 times now. I've lost 7 accounts now.
Hmm.
Um, and they don't realize too that, my videos, I do about 2 days worth of research for each one, because mine are more like stories about men,
Hmm.
like either custody stories or, like I try to do, stories that men aren't going to hear. So I don't get my stuff off of TikTok. I try to find it other sources, because I feel like by the time it's gone to the TikTok algorithm, everybody's seen, the same thing, the same video everybody's talking about.
Right, right.
I try to get a video that no one's seen or a story no one's seen. And I look at it as, you're not only taking away men's safe spaces, you're taking a year's worth of my work. That's
Well,
a
that's,
year's
yeah.
worth of my research, my work.
Like I had, like on the Men Need to Be Heard 2 account, TOO, when they restored it, they never put back my older videos. So, I talked about it earlier. It got banned Christmas morning, and I had done at that
Mhm.
point probably 200-300 videos on that account,
Yep.
similar to what I've done on this account. They're gone. And
Yep.
I didn't have Instagram. The reason I went to Instagram was so that if anything happened on TikTok, the videos were on Instagram. I could go get them, right? That's why I do YouTube also. So I put the same video up on all 3, knowing full well that eventually I'll probably lose at least 2 of them at some point. So then I can go grab those videos, because, I like you, I put a lot of work into them. I've got about 8 minutes. I want to touch on some of the comments that I saw come in. So, Guoda, sorry, I'm mispronouncing it. You said, online, I would say that in real life, there are places where you're exposed to higher risk. Yes, there are, but that applies to both men and women, I would argue. Mr. Legion,
Yeah.
1975. I don't go to the gym anymore because of women's actions at the gym. There's a classic example of a men have lost that safe space.
Yep.
I own one. I work out all the time. Now, I feel safe in mine because I'm in control. But if I were to go into a big box gym now, I would cancel my membership, because,
And men are doing that.
and they are,
And
like,
and you got to ask yourself, why are the gyms allowing it? Because they know they're going to make more
right.
money. Well, they're so afraid of a lawsuit, first of all.
Well, there's that, and
Um,
I'll tell you, there's another financial reason to that, Michelle, is there's a lot more women members to gyms than men.
yep.
So it's
That's
financial,
it.
All right, James Roche, the powers that be don't give a damn about men. Yep. Samson lost. I love this one. Now we have the Mike Pence law where men are avoiding women at all costs. Just a quick side note on that. My radio partner actually met with Mike Pence this past weekend at the North Carolina Republican Convention. Said he's a really nice guy. I had the chance to go to that. I wanted nothing to do with it, but Bill, my partner on the radio, met him and said he is what you see. I'm just saying that. Just looking at some of the other ones.
I didn't know. Sam's my mod too,
Is he?
and he had to explain the Mike Pence law to me. I was like, "What the hell?"
I like
the
that
Mike
one.
Pence?
I'd never heard that one before. Yeah.
No, I never heard that one.
Men are terrified to work with women or study with them. And then Guida said, really? That's very concerning. Yeah, that is the reality. Men are avoiding women at all costs at this point. I do.
You know what's interesting? So she's one of my newer followers. I believe so. Yeah, she's one of my newer followers. And I'm getting a lot more women. I don't know why, because I'm not, my content hasn't changed. But these women who are willing to listen are amazed. They go, "What? I never knew that about men. I never thought about that." It's
Allie
why,
talked about that on the podcast I did with her that went up last Sunday. She said the exact same thing.
yeah, and this is why I have hope. But I also, we need more women's voices in this space.
Yeah, we do.
But unfortunately, and some of my mods can tell you, after doing some lives about the passport bros, whoa,
Yeah.
I rethought my life choices that night. I'll tell you what, I had.
Just a couple of other notes. Will I Am Mailing. How about Clapper? Somebody else mentioned that to me. I know nothing about it, but when I did my video about that, I've had multiple people DM me about it. So I will be checking that out. Hummingbird, what we're talking about is we kind of floated like we usually do, but we started out talking about men needing safe spaces, and we've kind of gone from there. It's scary to even think just functioning together and leaning on one another should be the norm. Yes, it should be, but it's not safe for men anymore to do that. We have to avoid you. I'm sorry to say it. I'm not trying to be mean in any way. It is just the risk to men to being around women, because all you have to do is say, he touched me, he did this, he did whatever, he said this, he threatened me. Anything like that, you're going to be believed. He's going to be trucked off to jail. Nope, we can't take that risk anymore. And then Sam basically exactly said the same thing I just did. I didn't even read his thing. It's, and she says, how can any woman do that in her right mind? I would throw that back to her and you. Why would you do that? Why? I had two guys on my podcast. Ryan in particular, well, Jason's story was horrific, but then Ryan was on. Ryan went to jail for 3 months on a completely false allegation.
Ryan's coming on my show too.
Yeah, he is a great guy. I mean, I'm still talking with him, but when you see something like that, and that's why I want people guys in particular, to go watch those, learn from them, right? Because Jason did nothing wrong and got arrested and has an arrest record. He's been completely exonerated, but he can't get a job because it shows he was arrested for domestic violence, because that is never taken off the record. People don't understand that. Even when you're found innocent, because I Googled it and I pulled it up, it was the first thing that popped up that he'd been arrested, because that's public record. They can't take it out. Even though he's completely exonerated. And then Ryan was in the similar boat. It's when you see things like that as a man, you cannot risk being around women. You just can't.
I will say this, what these women don't understand, and why I'm so angry at them as well. And when you go into a courtroom, which I have recently, and they literally say you have evidence beyond evidence beyond evidence, and they say because of the influx of false allegations, we can't take the chance, and they get pled down.
Right.
So they're letting what their little actions to get back at a man are leading predators on the street, real predators.
It does have an effect. All right, I've only got a couple minutes. I just want to scroll real quick through the messages. Vado Loco, I don't go to the gym because I love my couch. Dude, the trainer in me is going, no. And then Joe said I go to the gym. I'm just scrolling through because I want to make sure I touch on anything that came in while we were chit-chatting. Biggest thing, Potent Lover, the biggest thing I find with modern women or Western women is their delusions, and I'll leave it at that. Never heard Mike Pence law. No, I didn't until just now. I gotta call my buddy Bill and talk about that, because he'll die laughing on it. Bill is 75 years old. I said your name correctly. That's a first. I usually butcher names. Sorry. Yeah, I got guys. I'm gonna pretty much end it on this. Michelle, thank you for coming on. I truly appreciate it.
Thank you.
And then DM me and I'll arrange to come on yours because I know you wanted me to come on yours. Uh,
Yeah, we'll do, if you have a time this weekend, that would be awesome.
Weekend's tough for me, but let's chat offline on
Um,
that. All right.
yeah, we'll figure it out.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be the weekend, but I want to do it for Men's Health
Health
Month,
month.
and
Yep.
I think it'll be real good. All
All
right,
right.
thank you, love.
All right. Have a good one. A couple more. I want to just go. Jeffrey Winnett. What is Mike Pence law? Basically, it was avoid women at all costs. I'm paraphrasing it now. Um, and will I be going on with Michelle at some point? Yes, I will, because I see that was a question. And I think I'm pretty much caught up. So, guys, I'm going to go ahead and end it here in the next minute or so. I want to say thank you to all of you who've watched. Really good. I'm so glad Michelle jumped on. One of the things that I think we all need to do is stand firm together about we need, I'm saying the men in particular, but the women who support us, we need that safe space for men. We need to be able to voice ourselves and talk. And it doesn't mean, unfortunately, they think it is. It doesn't mean we hate women or have a problem with them or whatever word you want to use. For those that don't know, I do these lives every Wednesday at 4. I get done by 5:30, hence why I'm wrapping things up now. I also have a podcast which goes up every Sunday at 11. Michelle was on it about 2 months ago. Go check that out. It was really good. Very similar topics to what we talked about here. I've had recently, I had Ryan and Jason on, false allegation victims. I've had divorce lawyers on. So I had Frank on 2 weeks ago. And we talked about parental alienation from the legal aspects. And he gave a ton of information about that. So if you're in a divorce or dealing with a parental alienation case, you need to go watch that because he was pretty blunt about all of it. And really just shared the information you need to hear. Might not have been what you wanted to hear, but you needed to hear it. And I've got another divorce lawyer lined up to come on. There are some good ones. Allie was on this past week. Anonymously Allie, I think it's 198 is her handle. I was hoping she'd jump on today, but she's probably busy. She was on recently. This upcoming Sunday, I've already recorded it. Honestly, I'm going to say it probably for some of you is going to be the most important one that I've done. We touched on men's mental health. I'm just going to go with that because I don't want to get canceled or anything like that, and the issues that specifically with regard to abuse. And I'm just going to leave it at that. I have an expert on. More to come on that. The editing's just about done on it. It'll be up Sunday at 11. So the podcast goes up every Sunday at 11. It's on both YouTube and Spotify. And Apple. I'm up on Apple also. So you can watch it on any one of those three. I've had some other people mention some other ones. I'll probably try and get it up on those at some point. There's only so much time in the day, right? I do run a business also. So, follow the lives every Wednesday. Again, random topics. My plan next week is to talk a little bit about the future of marriage, whether it's going to exist. That was my plan for today, but we kind of morphed on that. Just trying to think of anything else I missed. One other thing, just to let you know, is I do have that Patreon group, right? I can kind of put the information, I have the information right here. I'll just throw it up real quick if I can. I don't know if it'll pop up or not. Probably, oh, there it is. So I do have a Patreon group. That Patreon group is for you guys, right? It's a private group. It is protected, all right? The reason I use Patreon is it's not free. I'm not going to tell you it's free. It's not that expensive, though. But I run private groups out of that. I also do individual men's coaching. I don't normally talk about it on these, but a couple people that said I should. The private groups, they're not recorded anywhere. So I did one yesterday with some guys. There were 4 of us on. And within that, we had a really good discussion about one of the guys is struggling with something. I'm not going to give details because that wouldn't be appropriate. And we really kind of helped him. And then he let me know today, I don't want to, make it sound like I saved his life, but he said it he wasn't unaliving himself. He was nowhere near that, but it had a tremendous effect on him. So, if you're struggling with stuff like that, consider doing that. All right. Go over to the Patreon. Links are in my bios. There's a link tree. You can click on that. It'll take you to the podcast. It'll take you to the Patreon if you so desire. I got merch. There you go. There's that one. I should have my shirt on, but I don't. Coffee mugs. Where this money, I don't keep. I use it for various things. Part of it goes to the Taylor House, one of the only 2 domestic violence shelters for men in the country. So again, that's kind of where I'm at. I know some things came in while I was chit-chatting, and I apologize if I don't get to everything. But thank you all for watching. And sorry, I'm just reading through the quick. I just want to make sure I miss it. I know some of you have some questions for me. You can DM me. If you do want to reach me, I get literally thousands of messages between Instagram, Facebook, all of them, TikTok. I cannot possibly read all the DMs I get on that. So I apologize for that. If you have something serious you want to talk to me about, your best bet is to email me, menneedtobeheard@gmail.com. All right. On that note, I'm going to go ahead and wrap things up. Thank you for watching, and come back next week.